Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Sonic the Hedgehog here, aka the Blue Blur, aka Blue Justice. And I am Knuckles the Echidna here, and I'm an Echidna warrior. And we are back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos, as you probably expect us at this point in time. Yes, absolutely. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze for the Nintendo Wii U / Nintendo Switch. So last time we basically did manage to accomplish 5 levels for the sake of the forms of Bright Savannah, despite the fact that we did come across into a few death situations most of the time, specifically while we try to find, you know, some more puzzle pieces and here and there. But apart from those side things though, we did certain progression for, you know, Bright Savannah quite well. Don't you think? Yes, absolutely. So yeah, today for this video is about the fact that we're most able to finish up everything for the sake of the forms of Bright Savannah by going on to the next level, which appears to be level 3-6, Cannon Canyon. And as far as I'm aware, what this particular level focuses is all about is that we're going to be doing a lot of barrel blasting portion of this level, but with the unique twist to this is about the fact that we're going to be able to expect to see some pretty cool camera angles every time whenever we go to one section to the other. So, and I get the strong feeling is about the fact that this particular level right here was actually playable back during the forms of in E3 2013 when that particular game has first been announced for the Nintendo Wii U, that is. Oh yeah, because I do remember that time as well, concerning for the fact that it does manage to have the ability to play, was it 3 levels, was it? Or is it 4? Well, it's kind of hard for me to tell at this point, Knuckles, because I know for a fact that it's been a very, very, very long time since we've known about the forms of the massive differences between the E3 2013 version of that specific demo for the likes of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze compared to now in present day for not only for the, you know, 2014's release of the Wii U version, but same applies with the forms of the Switch port as well. So, yeah, you pretty much already know what to expect at this point. So, anyways, a few things we want to talk about this is that, potentially speaking of, is that today's date, of course, there is the 18th of January today, in some cases in 2024 today. I'm surprised to know about the fact that Ray the Flying Squirrel has completely forgotten to mention about, since in yesterday's video, for the sake of the Super Mario Bros. Wonder Let's Play so far, as it turns out is that both Golden Sun as well as Golden Sun The Lost Age has recently been released or been added for the sake of the forms of the Nintendo Switch Online Expansion Pack services for the Game Boy Advance software library. So as a result, no matter what though, I did recently double check on the forms of the actual website for the actual Nintendo Switch Online Expansion Pack for the Game Boy Advance application. We've only got one game left, and that's what appears to be F-Zero Maximum Velocity, at least as far as I'm aware. So, potentially speaking, hopefully they'll add some more titles eventually once the first ever Nintendo Direct for 2024 is almost approaching, but again, we'll have to wait and find out, especially concerning about the fact that recently today, Xbox Developer Direct is going to be up today. But then again though, unfortunately though, I don't suppose we can able to actually mention about this right now. I suppose we should probably be able to mention more about it until next week, if that certainly is possible. Well, I was thinking about this for this point, Sonic, actually, just because no matter what though, as you can tell, no matter what though, we're gonna have to able to focusing on trying to find those puzzle pieces from now on, and on top of that, we still need to be cautious about the forms of certain background elements. So, anyways, let's go and hop onto one barrel cannon to the other, and just make sure you don't go too slow, because otherwise, if you felt a bit too slow, then obviously you're going to die instantly, all thanks to the forms of those dynamite bombs that did somehow manage able to explode those specific pillars. So, but at least luckily we somehow got an N on the first attempt right here, because after the events of one of those levels in Autumn Heights, obviously we need to be fast on that. And good thing too, we somehow get every single of those Kong letters right now, and of course that particular last puzzle piece somewhere down there. So yeah, not too many deaths on that particular level, because we pretty much are more familiar with that particular level design, such as this, because obviously we already know about that since in almost 10 years ago. Well, technically it's been 10 years ago since when, you know, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze has been first announced, since during the forms of E3 2013, so, but I digress. So anyways, let's head over back onto level 3-5, which is of course Twilight Terror, because no matter what though, Knuckles, it's time to able to find not only one, but 2 secret exits. So, however though, Sonic is about the fact that we need to play this level twice. So, while technically we've already experienced this level for the first time around, but now we need to able to play this level not once, but twice, making a grand total of 3 run-throughs for the sake of the forms of Twilight Terror. Because like we've already established that before, ever since on Tuesday, that basically though is about the fact that it does have multitude of, you know, secret exits to be found. So, but we digress. Oh yeah, there's also another thing I want to mention about this as well, is that recently, ever since in yesterday, potentially speaking, happy 62nd birthday for the sake of the forms of that iconic actor who did manage able to play as Dr. Robotnik, or Dr. Eggman to be more specifically, from the likes of Sonic the Hedgehog 1 as well as Sonic the Hedgehog 2. That is none other than Jim Carrey himself. So yes, happy 62nd birthday. In some cases the cool actor, which is of course, like I said earlier, Jim Carrey. So, even though it's kind of a shame about the fact that we still haven't got any confirmed confirmation if he decides able to return into the forms of the 3rd Sonic movie, despite the fact though Sonic is about the fact that at this point in time, we've almost at 11 months away until Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is finally going to be releasing on the big screen. So, because still, no matter what though, this was still at the beginning portion of 2024 after all, so I digress. So there's the first secret exit right here. Now you can either use Dixie Kong or Cranky Kong to get up there. Now I don't think it's possible for Diddy Kong, because obviously he doesn't have the ability to able to perform multiple bounces or something like that. So, potentially speaking though, I think it's definitely possible that not only Cranky Kong can make it, but also Dixie Kong as well. So, anyways, let's go back onto Twilight Terror for the 3rd and approximately the final time to able to actually find the 2nd secret exit. And I think, if I recall correctly, it's actually at the very end of the level. So, and also keep this in mind, it does need to require Dixie Kong with our partner companion, because obviously ever since back in World 1, that basically though we need to use her ponytail to activate the forms of that specific hair torpedo thingy right there, for potentially trying to able to actually go through strong currents as far as I'm aware. Yeah, exactly, Knuckles, because we've already technically learned that since any forms of in the beginning portion of the game, so while trying to find those specific secret exits, all things considered, so. But either way, something's worth noting for is that recently during the forms event today actually, Prince of Persia The Lost Crown has recently been released, just recently today, for multiple platforms. This means includes PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X/S, as well as the Nintendo Switch, and I believe the PC version as well, although I might as well able to realize about the fact that, well, we have no idea which version of the game is considered to be the best version, but I'm sure that Ray the Flying Squirrel will mention more about it if he was feeling a bit better enough to able to go back onto Super Mario Bros. Wonder until tomorrow, that is. So because of that, speaking of which though, is about the fact that good news folks is that my sore throat has been fully gone for good. So now I can able to actually speak a bit more proper. So, despite the fact that there's nothing else has been going on at this point in time, especially concerning for the fact that we are pretty much now need to still wait until if the actual first ever Nintendo Direct for 2024 will be up on live, but then again, I think my main concern is going to be, as usual, is going to be on February, just like the forms of how it does it since in not only in 2019, but also with the forms of 2021, as well as 2022, and especially noticeable for last year for 2023. So, potentially speaking though, is about the fact that that was technically it's going to be the 5th time they're going to be doing it, So, but then again, we shall see what happens in due time, so... Yeah, thank you, game, but we've already know about this, especially concerning for the fact that we've already done this familiar, so... Anyway, there's our second secret exit right here, as we did somehow found, so... Piece of cake. Yep, especially concerning we can now able to actually tackle through those next 2 levels before we take on the forms of the next temple level, and of course the boss fight as well. So because of that, I believe we're about to go on to the left side first. So in some cases, level 3-A, Rickety Rafters. So I suppose we're also able to still stick around with Dixie Kong the most. So anyways, there's also another thing I want to mention about this as well. That recently, that we actually got ourselves an announcement of a next game for the Sacred Thief forms of the Nintendo Switch is going to be coming. And that's what appears to be Ace Combat 7 Skies Unknown. I'm not exactly sure what specific date that's going to be releasing on in terms of the actual game itself. Well, mind you, because we haven't exactly paid attention to the forms of that specific description, since Journey forms have been about the fact that, well, I know for a fact it's been about 2 days ago since we've last played Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze right now, so everything else will be come to expect at that point, so... Anyways though, there's also another thing I want to mention about this as well, in regards to the forms of I did manage to able to actually play certain app games on my phone recently, which is not only Sonic Dash, but also with the forms of approximately Mario Kart Tour for some extent, despite the fact that we're probably not going to touch upon Mario Kart Tour for a long period of time, mainly because at this point in time, I'm so sick of the forms of the stupid ranked cup system with all this tier system, because like what Ray the Flying Squirrel has already mentioned about this ever since in yesterday, I found it stupidly unfair to able to actually just try to able to desperately want to get some new alternative costumes for certain characters, because obviously no matter what though, some of them are actually locked out behind the forms of the ranked cup system, whilst don't get me wrong though, it's about the fact that we still managed able to finally get ourselves the pink Toad Pit Crew color this time, so at the very least we've got that. So I think we've almost gotten every single super types of characters though, Sonic, because we're still missing quite a few colors for Bodo, alongside with Yoshi, and as well as the Shy Guy as well. Oh yeah, because I do remember that time back in Journey Forms have been last year roughly, that we can never seem to able to actually get those characters in particular, just because they all locked out behind the stupid ranked cup system, because as far as I'm aware, I still am not a big fan of that system to me anyway, so... But I'm biased, I guess, so... Anyways, there's also another game is also going to get ourselves the actual confirmation about this release date just recently. That's what appears to be by the forms of, if I can recall correctly, is called Project Downfall. And as far as I'm aware, it did manage to confirm the actual release date for it, and it's going to be releasing at some point on February. To be more specifically, the 2nd of February, because it was originally going to be released in Journey Forms of Being last year in 2023, but it was being pushed back until this year for 2024. So, potentially speaking though, Sonic, is about the fact that despite we did not exactly know about that game all that much, but I get the strong feeling if we do manage to collect all of the bananas right here, I believe the only reward we do get is just a bunch of bananas. I don't think there's going to be a puzzle piece on that section, so... Yeah, I always thought about that, because we did somehow manage to play this on our own time on the Wii U version at the very least, so... Yeah, that's showing something, I suppose. But either way, though, let's just go ahead and try to able to jump onto this penguin enemy and grab a heart, just in case. Well, despite the fact that we've already maxed out for our health amount, so... Anyways, the next puzzle piece is in here. But, yeah, the main emphasis on this stage, as you can tell, is that similar to the forms of how it does in one of those segments in Donkey Kong Country Returns in the Ruins world. Basically, though, is about the fact that if you really want to progress into something, basically, though, we always have to make sure to able to grab this vine, so just in case it will activate something, not only for the sake of the forms of certain platforms, as you can tell, but also with the forms of, well, you probably get the idea. and there are some few occasional moments where we've met again with the forms of that particular water fruit object right here, and what we can do with it is about the fact that we need to hit targets with it. So just in case, no matter what though, if you manage to able to hit the target, then the platform should able to come close to you, and that way you should able to take a ride with it, just in case you can able to get certain progression. So, and there might be a couple of times that we have to do multiple targets, just in case we do need able to turn them into like regular platforms, and you have to like, you know, be rushed at this, just in case, no matter what though, if you're too slow, and basically you're gonna fall off and die. So something's worth noting for anyway. So, oh yeah, and speaking of which though, I found it was very, very annoying and inconsistent at the same time, because usually, relatively speaking, when it comes to like playing on my phone for a bit, when it comes to likely going back onto Sonic Dash, for example, that every time when a new character shows up in Journey Forms of Sonic Dash, every time when I was trying to able to level up my character, or potentially trying to able to do a revive kind of thingy, and on top of that with the forms of trying to able to collect the insane amounts of those character cards on Journey Forms of multiple run-throughs, and then whenever I go into the forms of watch an app notification, sometimes, I will admit though, is about the fact that that particular system kind of sucks, honestly, because not only it has to forces me to able to watch the entire free app advertisement, but the most annoying thing about it is that when I was trying to skip ahead, and then basically though, I almost assumed that the cross symbol is going to show up, but every time when that happens, it just somehow never shows up, meaning I'm basically soft locked. And on top of that, I didn't claim any of those rewards, which I found is so stingy to me. Yeah, I always thought about that, Sonic, so. Alright, here we go with level 3-B, which appears to be Bramble Scrumble. And conveniently enough, we're going back into the actual Bramble-themed levels ever since in Donkey Kong Country 2. So yeah, it's actually pretty cool to able to actually see this particular level style like this ever since in Donkey Kong Country 2, except this time is that Donkey Kong and Cranky Kong can now able to actually experience the Bramble level themes, whilst compared to Diddy Kong as well as Dixie Kong, they both technically have already experienced this particular level layouts like this, even with this entire environment, ever since in Donkey Kong Country 2, basically, because, you know, the actual main plot in Donkey Kong Country 2 involves around you take control of Diddy Kong as well as Dixie Kong, and hopefully trying to rescue Donkey Kong by the evil clutches of Captain K. Rool. So yeah, you probably get the idea for this point. And of course, much like the forms of how it does it for the Tiki Army from the likes of Donkey Kong Country Returns, basically though, in this game in particular, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, sadly there's no gremlins to able to fight this time around though, unlike in the old days, specifically the one on the Super Nintendo games and the Game Boy games as well. At least if you want to include the Donkey Kong Land games in particular. Yeah, I always thought about that, because obviously they both share the exactly same premise as each other, except with there are some limitations, which, you know, think of like the forms of lesser amounts of buttons you have to work with in Donkey Kong Land Trilogy, as well as the forms of some more buttons you can able to have into your disposal for the Donkey Kong Country games. So, at least to be more specifically with the Super Nintendo version, because unlike the Game Boy Advance version, they do manage to able to have lesser amounts of buttons, well, aside from the fact that they now include the L and R buttons, so, well, at least potentially speaking of Knuckles, if you do somehow mention something related to the Game Boy Advance remake. So, at least potentially speaking with the first game and the second game, as well as the third game, so, yeah, I always thought about that, so. Anyways, I suppose there's also another thing I want to mention about this as well, is that by that time until tomorrow, after this video releases, is that both The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered for the PlayStation 5 is going to be releasing tomorrow. Alongside with that, there's also going to be another code, recollection for the Nintendo Switch is also going to be releasing as well. So because of that, we're not exactly sure how the reviews is going to turn out to be, but I'm sure we'll let Ray the Flying Squirrel will mention more about it until either tomorrow or perhaps even maybe on Monday, presumably speaking. So, oh jeez, I always hate this particular bonus areas because not only it takes a bit of time, but also about the fact that if you mess up at least once, for that particular barrel cannon shot, then obviously you have to take a life away and you have to try again. So, but at the very least though, Sonic, is about the fact that at the very least we did somehow succeed this time around, so that's something, I suppose. Yeah, I suppose that might be true for this point, Knuckles. That could possibly be true, so obviously we have to go through leaf to leaf, basically. So, just to ensure about the fact that, well, exponentially, there's a puzzle piece down there if you decide to look hard enough, so. But, aside from all that stuff, though, is about the fact that that's all I can really say about this, honestly. I mean, apart from the fact that, for one thing in mind, is that, potentially speaking, though, is about the fact that, did you know that during the films of this year in 2024 will mark the films of the 20th anniversary of the game remake release of Donkey Kong Country 2 for the Game Boy Advance. So maybe if it's a possibility we can able to actually tackle for that. Imagine this though, Knuckles, is that if we did somehow manage to finish up everything for the sake of the films of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze up to this point, well, presumably speaking though, we can probably able to do that. Maybe at some point in the future for 2024, but not now anyway though, just because we're still working on 3 games at the moment, like we've already established that in the past, so. Well, at least on the upside in this bonus area is so overall super duper easy, because obviously we don't need to worry about barrel cannon focuses and stuff like that, but regardless of such though, we're able to easily get this, so. And straight to the point, we've somehow accomplished it, no problem, so too easy. That was a piece of cake. And I believe that pretty much does it for every single puzzle pieces in this level, so pretty self-explanatory, so simple and self-explanatory as far as what I was meant to say for this point, but still, no matter what though, I get the feeling that we've almost at the halfway point in terms of the actual progressioning for Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze up to this point. Well, mainly because, for one noticeable thing, we've almost finishing up everything for World 3, like usually for Bright Savannah, but also eventually at some point we're able to come across into a 4th world. Exponentially we're able to actually get onto that until on Tuesdays and Thursdays, as we expect at this point, so yeah, I really do like this level for the sake of the actual Bramble Scramble, so yeah, pretty cool to able to have that particular level theme back since in Donkey Kong Country 2, so. Alright, so now the temple level's now opened up, so this means we can able to actually now tackle for that stage. So, in some cases though, we actually have ourselves pure cautious pendulums, so level 3-K. So, I'm really hoping we can able to actually get ourselves our Kong companion, most likely Dixie Kong, just in case it makes the entire stage a total cakewalk. Although, keep this in mind, Knuckles, is about the fact that this particular types of stages like this still requires a lot of concentration if you decide to able to go for a true perfection run, if you so much more of a desires, I guess, so. But I digress. So, obviously in this stage right here is about the fact that we need to able to go for a serious amount of pendulum platforms, as you can tell, so. Yeah, I bet this stage is going to be a little bit trickier with just Donkey Kong himself, because obviously, again, if you fell off, and basically if you lose a life, you have to start all over again, so, but at least thankfully though, Knuckles, is about the fact that at the very least we got Dixie Kong with us, so, ever since during the films have been the first temple level, so, whilst unlike the second temple level that we have to able to deal with just us, with just Donkey Kong himself by doing multiple bouncing chains, so at least as far as I'm aware, so alright, so we got able to just hop onto another barrel cannon and shoot all the way to the left, just in case we can able to get the next puzzle piece after all, so but either way though, that's all I can really say about this, I guess. Like I said before, in terms of the forms of discussing on things, well, aside from the fact that for one thing in mind, that we've almost nearly at the end of January in 2024. At least potentially speaking though for this point, Knuckles, is about the fact that I'm pretty sure we've only got 6 months left until basically Paris 2024 Summer Olympics is about to start until 6 months time almost. So Well, it wasn't until when it gets to the point until on the 26th, after all, of July, so... Yep, I was pretty much expecting for April to just know about this right from the start. So of course we have to watch out for those electrical objects, as you can tell. But yeah, for the most part though, it's about the fact that I honestly do enjoy Bright Savannah World, just because it reminds me of so much of The Lion King. Well, to be more specifically though, for 4 levels, or technically 3, at least if you really want to expect at this point, so... Alright, so let's grab that puzzle piece and... Oh, jeez, that was close. And good thing this is actually the last puzzle piece on this stage, so at the very least we've got them all. So, yeah, I suppose all we need to do now is just basically we need to do some more barrel blasting segments, and I get the strong feeling there's going to be the last pretty tricky platforming segment, so hopefully we should be able to actually just try to do this okay enough. Oh jeez, things get a little bit more scary when it comes to likely... Oh jeez, that was close. Yeah, because no matter what though, sometimes it rarely happens if you manage to able to stumble across into... Oh, we can able to pull this thing out. And exponentially, that pretty much leads us to at the very end of the stage. So, at the very least, it does manage to able to took me about 1 attempt, whilst unlike the second temple level, jeez, it did took us about quite a number of attempts, mainly because it requires a lot, I mean a lot of strict timing you have to put up with, so I guess that was it for that particular temple level. So of course, much like always, we somehow got the mysterious relic, so 3 down and only 3 more to go, so naturally we're on to the halfway point when it comes to those temple levels. So anyways, let's go ahead and go back onto some levels, and hopefully we'll try to find the last few bits of those puzzle pieces, so yeah. Alright, if I recall correctly, the next puzzle piece should be on this specific spot, after pulling out this particular plug thingy and grab all the bananas, and that way we should reveal it. And at the ending portion of that particular stage, we need to grab every single items on this specific spot, because if you missed one of them, you have to take a life away and you have to retry this section again, assuming if you do activate the checkpoint, thanks to the forms of that tutorial pig guy, so... But regardless of everything else though, Sonic, we did somehow manage to accomplish that no problem, so... Although there's also another thing I want to mention is that I love the loading screen transition for that particular world itself of Bright Savannah, because again, it reminds me of so much of the Lion King vibes, but that's just me, especially for, you know, celebrating 30 years of the original film, but either way. Alright, so we made our way to the end of the level, and we have to pay attention to the gold barrel to start able to bounce all the way higher up, just in case you don't want to get interrupted by that particular victory fanfare. So, and exponentially, when you go all the way to the right, and you get rid of this grass by simply rolling, and basically that's how you get the last puzzle piece. So, yeah, that's all basically sorted for this point, and let's go and get the last puzzle piece on this particular stage. Alright, something tells me we need to hold down the trigger button, because if you grab this vine, that way the puzzle piece was actually located on there. Alright, so we somehow managed able to got every single puzzle pieces right now, so now we've actually going to be able to take care of the next boss fight. So, level 3-boss, or level 3 boss, and that's what appears to be Triple Trouble. Not to be confused as the actual subtitle for Sonic the Hedgehog Triple Trouble, released on the Sega Game Gear in 1994. I mean, can you believe that Sonic Triple Trouble is going to be 30 years old this year? Man, time flies. Yeah, especially I do remember that game is actually pretty cool though, but anyway. Is it just me, Knuckles, or is this particular boss character does reminds me of Rafiki? Well, except no matter what though, Sonic is about the fact that at least Rafiki was actually the nice guy in terms of the forms of, you know, the nicest character for the Lion King continuity, so... But anyway, here we go with the forms of the next boss fight right here, and this boss is known as, Boom. So, yeah, basically, all you have to do in this particular fight, as you can tell, we need to stomp on their heads for about 3 times each, making a grand total of 9 hits to deal with. So, exponentially, I have no idea why, he did somehow manage able to pull off a spin dash, which, as a result, I can't even believe he's actually using my technique, even though it only lasted for about a few seconds notice. But regardless of everything else though, is about the fact that it's just you have to watch out for not only the Boom, but also with the forms of certain items that he's going to be using for. Like for instance, that he did somehow use the hammer at one point, and also we're now on to phase 2, where they now decide able to toss bombs at us. Now you don't want to grab the red ones because they're all prickly and everything, but the ones we need to grab is the ones with the melon on it. So just to ensure no matter what though, that actually counts as a hit if you dare manage able to toss the bomb right back at the forms of that particular Boom. And for those of you probably wondering, for those of you who lived in Japan, the actual boss character in this world is actually known as Baboon, Brothers, I think is what it says anyway. Well, at least I don't know exactly anything about the Japanese comparisons, but still, no matter what though, I just want to classify that specific fact or hint, so... Anyway, so we've now moved on to the third and probably the final phase of the fight, where basically though he's now going to be able to toss red bombs that again you really want to avoid those, and exponentially he just now summons the forms of 2 spirits of himself to classify if able to know is about the fact that we have to able to deal with him for, you know what I'm saying, even though it's hard to explain really, just because no matter what though, as we said before, it's been 2 days ago since we've last played this, so... But obviously you need to able to jump onto a real Boom, just in case no matter what though, you don't able to just get distracted by the forms of those spirits of his, so... But when you get down with it though, it's actually not too bad. It's just that sometimes it can be chaotic at times. To be more specifically, if you're trying to able to deal with... Oh jeez, we got cornered right there. Oh jeez. No, we just got cornered again, and somehow we just took another death for a boss fight. I will say though, the boss fights in this game is by far the hardest this time around, whilst unlike in Donkey Kong Country Returns, for some boss fights it's actually overall self-explanatory and easy, whilst I feel like for every single bosses in this game is actually a lot more difficult this time around, at least from my recollection, so... But then again though, there's nothing else we can probably say about this at this point. It's just about the fact that I'm pretty certain, no matter what though, like we said this before, we've only got one more Game Boy Advance game left to be added onto the surface for the sake of the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, and that is of course F-Zero Maximum Velocity, whilst hopefully they'll add more, like for instance with F-Zero GB Legend, or F-Zero Climax as a Japanese exclusive, or perhaps even maybe they'll able to actually bring Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland, which is basically a remake of Kirby's Adventure, but on the Game Boy Advance handheld, so... Oh yeah, did you know, Sonic, is about the fact that exponentially speaking though, since we're still in 2024 after all, did you know about the fact that the English version of the Nintendo DSi is going to be 15 years old this year? Oh, alongside with that, Knuckles, there's also a, quite a few downloadable titles for specifically the DSiWare games that is eventually going to became 15 years old as well. Like, for instance, Mario vs. Donkey Kong Minis March Again, or if I like to call it Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2.5 Minis March Again, because it's almost like a light version of Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2, at least as far as I'm aware, except the fact that it's all downloadable exclusive, and also it's a DSiWare exclusive, whilst you, well, it is kind of unfortunate that you can no longer get that game now, for the sake of the forms of the future years to come. Especially it doesn't help about the fact that the online stuff is also going to be shutting down as well, so... Because, I mean, let's face it though, Knuckles, is that the future is going to be a little bit bleaker than I was expecting, just because no matter what though, again, I totally get about the fact that they want to make things a little bit more stand out for future systems to come, but at the very least though, it's about the fact that we can still able to actually, you know, access to some parts for the sake of defaults of without online functionality if that time comes. Like, for instance, I've noticed there is actually some of those aspects, like, for example, Mario Tennis Ultra Smash, that despite nobody cares about that game, just because it's, you know, lacking in content, as you probably already expect. So, but then again, no, Sonic, is that I think it's probably best able to save that particular topic until next week or so, because as far as I'm aware, we've almost approaching onto the halfway point in terms of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze right now. Yeah, because exponentially speaking though, we're still on the third world, of course. And there it goes, the forms of Baboom. And we have to mash the button for about, well, I think we did somehow hit him for about 23 times, so it's actually not too bad. But either way, I suppose that pretty much does it for Bright Savannah. All in all, a pretty cool world in my opinion, just because again, it reminds me of so much of watching The Lion King, to be more specifically the original film. So, that's just the way how I feel about it. So, I suppose no matter what though, we'll now move on to the fourth world, and I suppose we should probably end things off this point right here. So join us next time for more of Let's Play of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. Is that we're going to be approaching on to World 4, known as Sea Breeze Cove, and this particular world does require a lot of swimming. So yeah, we'll see you guys until our next Tuesday. Later fellas.